And now the 419 with Gretchen DeBacker, Matt Killam, and Kevin Mullen.
Welcome into the 419, powered by WGTE and presented by Wheatro Wealth Management. I'm Kevin Mullen.
Gretchen DeBacker.
Matt Killam.
It is a surprise guest show, and so it's going to be your surprise guest. Part of our kind of throwback to the original podcast where only one of us knows who the guest is. And this time,
No one knows.
that's right. Well, inevitably,
It's your day,
whenever
Matt.
What?
whenever it's Matt's turn, we can always count on him notifying his guest somewhere inside of 12 hours.
I was going to give him 24 to 48, but you're saying 12 hours?
I think.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad we're talking about this because for those of you who will watch this so regularly, who is next to no one, or those of you that are incarcerated, every time something goes amok from a scheduling perspective, I get blamed. And it has yet to be
Questionable.
Well, it's always
In
questionable.
the time that we've been with WGTE, you're saying it has not been you.
That's right.
That's right.
Well, I don't think of the past.
Oh,
That's
that's
because
right.
you have
Yeah.
nothing to do with the schedule.
It doesn't matter. I don't know where the schedule
That's
is.
beside the point.
I don't know where to find said schedule, and I've not hijacked it. It doesn't, look, don't cheat me out of this.
You know we have one,
This
but you're
schedule
just
is,
not.
is my show, basically. We have a big get today for a guest, and I'm really excited about it.
Okay, good.
So I've got some hints.
Okay.
This person, go ahead.
No.
I didn't know if it was your show or not. This person is in charge of bringing billions of people or guests to our area.
Okay.
They are basically a non-official air traffic controller.
Air traffic controller. Is it a pilot?
The most significant convener of anything that happens in our region is this individual.
Wow.
They are globally significant.
How do you know this person?
I'm thinking port.
Yeah.
All right, right?
Okay.
Kind of a travel agent of sorts.
Huh.
It's there's a little hyperbole here, clearly, but this is a really smart, charismatic person that has an expertise that is globally significant. And
Man or woman?
It's a woman.
Okay.
Okay, well, now my Port Authority
Yeah, no. it's not
guesses
Port
are out.
Authority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Well,
Tom Cole. It
Interesting.
can't be Tom Cole either. So.
That's right.
that's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So it's not our go-to.
Not our go-tos.
Right? Tom,
not the-
Tom continues to ignore my messages and my
Continues
calls.
to evade us.
Yeah, all my edible arrangements I've been sending to his home.
They're just rotting.
When I think about like,
Speaking of rotting, Gretchen's yard is almost prepped for season.
Almost.
Now, the season was 2024.
In my defense,
Yeah. When are you-
it did snow early this year. So like
Sure.
I never even did my leaves.
Yeah.
So now that the snow is gone, the yard looks like
I've got a question
garbage.
for you. That fern,
That
which
fern
is out
is-
there in the memoriam,
I think it's gonna come back.
yeah, from the dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see some little green buds out there,
I,
and I really feel
Yeah.
like with some
those
proper
are cigarette
care,
butts from people that have been painting your house.
people are going by the bus stop.
so but you're saying with proper care, you believe that it could come back.
No, it's like
but
beyond
do you
dead.
believe that you have proven yourself capable of providing proper care
No.
to where it would come back?
No, normally I get the fern and then I bring it in for the winter, but the snow came upon us and I just was unawares.
Yeah.
In 2024.
Yeah.
I also just let the pumpkins disintegrate.
Have you taken, have holiday decorations?
There's nothing holiday out there.
Because they didn't go out this year.
Yeah, it's a dead fern and a dead mom.
Yeah.
I never got to Christmas. It's just pure,
Usually-
those are fall decor.
Usually the Nutcracker is out standing sentry
Yeah. Yeah.
for close to a.
It's like a metal nutcracker. But no, nothing, it never came out this year.
What is the spring cleaning for the, like, what does that look like for you guys? Like, is it like you spend a day out in the yard and rake out the beds and
For
plant
me-
flowers and do all that? Or
For me, it's Googling spring cleanup
okay.
and finding what businesses come up to have them do it for me.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I usually plant flowers. I'll put a little something spring out there, and maybe even change the light bulb to a brighter.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
Look at
so
you.
mix it up.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to go down the child labor law issue again, my
I can have
daughter's
the kids
always
do it?
looking for
Okay.
Yeah, that's
ways
a
to
great
make
idea.
money.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've been they're desperate
Yeah.
to find ways to make
Remember
money.
when she mowed the lawn for me because she wanted to get American Girl doll?
Yeah, that was when we did not have it was not a self-propelled
Yeah,
mower. It was a push mower.
she mowed a couple of
That-
times.
With the blades?
No, not that old school. I mean,
Okay.
it was still gas powered,
It was
but there was
scissors.
no power. But I mean, this was
Yeah,
4 years ago.
yeah.
She would have
was
been
like
8.
Yeah, she was little.
This was the last time Gretchen, that's when she got the fern.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, when we come back,
Yes.
we find out who your surprise guest is.
Yes. The big get.
Air traffic controller.
Billions of people to the area.
Billions of guests.
And a woman.
Billions of guests. All right, so he clearly took issue with you saying people.
Yeah, he did.
All right.
I take issue with most of the things you say.
Well, that's fair. All right.
true.
When we come back, we'll find out who Matt's surprise guest is here on the 419. Support for the 419 comes from Witro Wealth Management, where we understand that your financial path is personal. Advisory services are offered through Capital Investment Advisory Services, LLC. Securities offered through Capital Investment Group, Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. More information at witroadvisors.com.
The 419, powered by WGTE, is made possible in part by supporters like you. Thank you.
Introducing The Local Thread, a community news series uniting voices and storytellers from across the region. In partnership with La Prensa, the Toledo Free Press, the Sojourner's Truth, Toledo Public Schools, and Rethinking Jails and Justice. The Local Thread brings you stories and conversations that connect our community. Hear it weeknights at 7 on FM 91 with early access on podcast platforms each morning. The Local Thread, only on WGTE.
Welcome back into the 419, powered by WGTE, our mystery guest. And it's Matt's mystery guest. And now I see why you took issue when Gretchen said 3 billion people.
Yes.
And you
I said billions.
Guests.
Yes.
Millions.
Yeah.
Billions.
It's billions.
Billions of visitors.
Visitors. That's right.
Visitors.
Yes.
Tiny travelers visiting Northwest Ohio.
Kim Kaufman with the Black Swamp Bird Observatory.
So,
Welcome. Thank you
Yeah.
for coming
Thank
in.
you. I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you so much.
Kim, at the risk of making you feel uncomfortable, I was introduced to you by friends of all of ours, probably Karen Fraker, asked me to come with her to the Toledo Museum of Art to hear, and I just moved back really to town, and she said, well, come and listen to the biggest week in birding. And I do love Karen. I was like, the biggest week in birding. And you spoke, and it was fascinating and engaging, and I'm embarrassed to say educational as well as somebody who grew up here.
Right.
And I have been a big fan ever since, and now we're a little more closely aligned based on my day job, but I couldn't be more thrilled to have you here. And again, we're going to talk about the stars of the show, right, eventually, which is the birds, but I do want to talk about the people, because it doesn't happen all at once or on its own, because I'm a Toledoan, and I did not think of us as the birding capital of the world, and now I know it, and more people do all the time. So great to have you on, but I do want to start at the beginning. Kim, when you were little Kim, not the rapper.
That's Lil.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But did you ever envision, where did you start, where are you from?
What was your entry point
Yeah.
into the bird world?
Yeah. Well, first, thank you so much, Matt. That's so lovely of you, and I'm so excited to be here today. But, you know, I grew up on a little farm in Cary, Ohio, down in the edge of Northwest Ohio.
Sure.
And I grew up in the era where we were outside all the time. Our parents had to yell at us to come into the house. And we were exploring the woods and the little creek beside our house, but somehow I just never connected with birds until my late 20s, not that long ago.
That's right. Just a few years
a few
prior.
years
Yeah,
ago.
new to the game, are you, Kim? Yeah.
And I was at an appointment in Cary, the little town near where I grew up, and outside the window was this bird feeder. And we didn't have a lot of money, so bird feeding wasn't even a concept. I didn't even know it was a thing. And it was in the summer, And on every perch was a summer male American goldfinch. And if you don't know what that is, look it up. Now I'm giving people homework to know.
This is a
These
show
are-
mostly to make people feel badly about themselves, so don't worry about that.
I'm right on track.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am,
tracking.
100%.
So in the summer, the male goldfinches are this blazing yellow with black and white on their wings. They're just extraordinarily beautiful. And I said to the woman at the counter, "Oh my gosh, what are these birds? They look like escaped canaries." And she's like, "Kim, those are goldfinches. They're so common in Ohio. Like, you put up a bird feeder, they're the first birds that come." And I'm not exaggerating when I say the entire course of my life changed in that moment, because I thought, if something this glorious has been out there around me my whole life and I missed it, what else is out there?
Yeah.
And I haven't paused for a moment since then to try to figure that out.
That's amazing.
I mean, it is. I mean, it's fascinating that, like, I mean, as you're saying this, I'm thinking, like, man, I've overlooked all of it, all the time, right? I mean, how much of the beauty around us do we just kind of gloss right over? But to have that kind of moment and then go, all right, well, now I want to go find all of it.
I'm curious on what fostered that ability, and it's certainly okay, although I know that you won't say this, to say that it was truly generated by you. But the other individuals that talked to you about this, that was just background to them, right? I mean, they're like, oh yeah, you threw up a bird feeder, but this was an aha moment to you. Did your folks or siblings foster this kind of thing? Was there a blazoned a thought of entrepreneurship or ingenuity or just artistic flair? Like this was a vector moment for you.
It was, but it was an instant obsession. I just was consumed with trying to figure out with these birds and what else was out there. And for my family, it was, they were very supportive. It's a very close-knit, loving family. And I managed to drag my family into it. And like, I have to go out and see what else, where else do you go look for birds? I didn't even know where to go to find birds. Just the basic principles I didn't understand. But also it made it really easy at holidays and birthdays, because it's like, oh, we can buy any bird thing for kids. So I think my record was 17 bird clocks, the singing bird clocks.
Oh my gosh.
And every time I was like, oh, this is so wonderful, thank you so much. I would put in the closet with the stack of bird clocks.
Oh, thank God. I thought that they were all hung. And I was like a cacophony of.
Yeah.
Poppy has bird clocks all throughout
Remind
the house.
everybody who Poppy is.
My wife's grandfather. And huge fan of the show. But he's literally every morning is out the door before Grandma's even awake with his camera, taking pictures of. You've got a photo somewhere that he took at one of the parks of a, I don't know, eagle, hawk, goldfinch. I don't know the difference.
Kevin has a real expertise in birds too. You can hear it.
It's right behind. It's right behind it. There it is. What is that?
That's a eagle.
Oh yeah, that's a bald eagle.
There you go. A
A
bald
young
eagle.
bald
See,
eagle.
I'm American. I
You
knew
know
that.
what you're talking about.
But that's
That's right.
yeah, so
It's
you-
not that
you
show,
got-
Kim.
What were you at the time that you had this like goldfinch aha moment? What were you doing?
Good question.
I owned a small but successful home and office cleaning business. I had employees, all these clients.
Get out of town.
And honestly, I said to myself, I can't work. I can't work. I have to go out and look at these birds. Figure this out. So I sold off the business and just plunged headlong into this world of birds, starting in my backyard. I left that appointment that day and drove straight to this, it was a grain elevator where they also sold bird seeds and feeders. And I literally left there, drove there, bought the feeder, went home and sat down and watched this feeder out the window like, okay, when do my birds show up? And it happened really quickly. Within a couple of days, the birds started to arrive, and then it was like, what's that? What's that?
Kim, what is the fine line between what you're describing and psychosis?
Yeah, when did you get the medical
line between.
When was the wellness check done?
I'm not sure that line exists.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, it really does sound like a true bolt of lightning
our
here that
region-
happened.
It really was.
Yeah.
And I love that area. I love the community and how people care about each other and help each other. But for a young woman without a college degree, my opportunities were limited, to say the least. My path forward was pretty dictated to me by the world around me. And birds became a purpose in life eventually, as I was out exploring, and someone said, oh, there's a bald eagle nest not too far from, between your house and Tiffin. And I'm like, listen, there are no bald eagles around here. I would have known about it.
Yeah.
They would have called.
Well, so I drove up and here's this massive nest. I'm like, oh my God, there are bald eagles here.
Yeah.
And I spent hours obsessing, watching every move these birds made just to learn, and I was so fascinated by it. And the wildlife officer for that county eventually sees me out there every day and he says, you know, Kim, there's this volunteer program that the Division of Wildlife hosts, and you could sign up and all this information you're collecting could add to the database, the knowledge
So
base.
you were collecting information while you were there, journaling
Yeah,
what
just
you'd
writing
seen?
down
Okay.
myself, just trying to figure it out. And the person in charge of that, Mark Shieldcastle for the Ohio Division of Wildlife, was one of the founders of Black Swamp Bird Observatory.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
very quickly he realized we have a willing victim here.
That's right.
He says, Kim, you should come up and visit our bird banding research station up here in Northwest Ohio. And the moment I stepped foot in that area, I knew I had found my people, my purpose. Like, this is what I was meant to do. And I've been with the organization ever since.
Kim, date us to that transaction or that communication was when?
Oh gosh, I'm so terrible about timelines.
Sure. Well, birds don't carry watches.
I would say mid 1990s.
Okay. All right. Got it.
And so
Like
this,
1997.
Gotcha.
I recently became obsessed with the live cam they had on the Eagle Nest in California, which was so terribly interesting, but that's another story. This obsession with birds and your in the life of birds also led you to your husband, did it not?
It did.
And your husband is also a very much of a bird authority. Can you talk a little bit about him and about how you guys met?
Kim, this is what happens. I bring a guest on who is fascinating, and I have a whole set of things I want to get to, and then these two.
This is interesting.
How is that not a good question?
is.
It's a great question. It was one of my questions.
Okay, I'm sorry. Matt, hang
I
on.
wish I could replace them with birds.
Matt, go ahead and ask your question.
No, Gretchen said it better.
Yeah,
This
I
is
really
a great.
did.
This is at the risk of making you feel uncomfortable. This is a beautiful part of the story to me, also.
There is nothing uncomfortable about talking about Ken.
Yeah.
Ken Kaufman, my husband, is a world-renowned bird expert, and he's, I would even say that he's a beloved figure in the international birding community because he's just such a great person, a great human being, a great teacher. He's an expert that shares his knowledge so generously and so graciously with every person he's ever
Yes,
met.
ma'am.
And when I first started birding, I was buying everything related to birds, every bird guide, and just trying to figure it out. And one of the first field guides to birds that I bought was Ken Kaufman's Field Guide to the Birds of North America, and I coveted it. I carried it everywhere. I wore it out. And eventually, as I got more into birding, I realized you can travel. There are other birders out there, and there are birding
I'm not
festivals.
alone.
Yeah, I'm not alone.
Yep.
So in my family, we didn't aspire to travel. I remember in high school, my friends and I drove across the Indiana state line like,
Big doings. That's right.
it was like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I learned about the Texas Tropics Bird and Nature Festival. So I booked a commercial flight.
And that turned into Coachella.
And yes,
Is that-
Similar to Hawaiian
Birdchella.
Tropic.
That's it. Go ahead, Kim. Yeah. all right.
And rented a car, the whole thing. I felt so cosmopolitan. And off to Texas I go, and the first field trip in Texas with all of these exotic looking birds, I was excited, I was obnoxious.
Sure, that's
I
all
was.
right.
So I get on the bus, and the field trip is supposed to be led by Father Tom Pincelli, who is a priest in the Rio Grande Valley, he's an amazing birder, and he's done an incredible job of marketing birding tourism in that region. So I get on the bus and I'm waiting for this priest, and I'm towards the back and I have this Kaufman field guide in my lap. And this guy climbs on the bus, very handsome.
Oh, doesn't hurt.
And I remember thinking, boy, what a waste that guy's a priest because he's really handsome.
Sure.
And he gets the mic because it's a big bus.
We
and
just
he-
lost half of our faith-based audience.
No, it's you know,
Right.
This isn't
It's part of the
Thornbirds.
plan.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is a true story.
Yes.
And so the guy gets the mic and he says, "Good morning, everybody," in this deep voice.
Yeah.
And Father Tom couldn't make it today. His boss called him to do something else today. And I'm Ken Kaufman, and I'll be leading your field trip.
And there's fawning immediately.
And I looked down at my book and I flipped it over and I saw Ken's picture and I'm like,
Gosh.
I'm on a field trip with Ken Kosmyna. And the rest of the day, at that point, I was really immersed in the science of what we were doing at Black Swamp. out banding birds in the marsh, collecting scientific data. And I went out into the field with Ken that day, and I watched him just weave this spell around every person on that field trip, engaging them, helping to teach them, like, here's this bird, making sure that they saw every bird. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to help people fall in love with birds and share this gift that I've received with as many people as I can. I came back to Ohio and said, I want to be the education director.
Yeah.
So Ken really, he changed the course of my life, and we definitely hit it off.
Yes.
We had some moments, but it was several years later, on the 10th anniversary of Black Swamp Bird Observatory, when we invited Ken to be our keynote speaker. And this has become kind of a famous story in the birding community, but it was February in Columbus, Ohio, and the
best time to visit Columbus.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, what a beauty.
And to go birding.
Yes, ma'am.
So he gives a keynote that was absolutely magical on Saturday night. Sunday morning, we go on this field trip. And by the end of it, I thought, I don't know what's happening, but I think I love this guy.
Yeah.
And we're getting ready to leave, and I thought, he's going to go in. I'm never going to see him again. And I thought, how do I make him more aware of me? And I just made a big snowball. And Ken had on this rain-type jacket, and I bombed him with the snowball. It hit him right between the shoulder blades. Whack!
Yeah.
And all the older BSBO volunteer people were aghast that, oh
You
my
struck
gosh,
the leader.
Kim just hit Ken Kaufman with a snowball. But Ken instantly gathered up a big snowball, and we were in a 10-minute snowball fight. And then he left. He just left, and we both were thinking about each other. And eventually we reconnected. And so birds and snowballs are very significant in our relationship.
That is a beautiful story. I've got two questions. To go back just a second, in a time and space when people or you can have the world's best cup of coffee, which is made out of nowhere. Do you mind telling us, Ken is globally recognized. Can you talk a little bit about what that means and his impact on literally the planet, but provide some context for that if you don't mind.
Ken spent a great deal of his early adult life traveling and leading tours for various companies and established contacts with birding in the birding community all around the world. And just once you get to know him, you see that he's just so wonderful and gracious. And beginners will come up and ask Ken a question, a very basic question, and he always treats it with respect. And he's given lectures all around the world on a ship in the Antarctic, on a riverboat in Peru.
Oh, cool.
I mean, he's an incredible bird expert. He's a talented bird artist. He's an incredible painter. He's an author of more than a dozen books on birds and nature, but he's a great teacher.
Yeah.
I've learned so much from Ken, and I've watched him teach so many others. And so his impact, for instance, when we got married and we were talking about where to go on a honeymoon, he called a lodge in the Amazon basin of Ecuador, and they're like, oh my God, is this the Ken Kaufman? Like, you called Ecuador? And then
Yeah.
So his reputation is based on skill, knowledge, and just being such a genuine, gracious person.
I'm hearing that birding is for single people. That's what I'm taking away from this.
I have
this story.
a follow-up, and I think you just scratched the surface of it. And we're done talking about Ken shortly here and talk about the real star who
I'll
got
talk
today.
about him all day. I'm happy to talk about him as much as you like.
But Kim, both of you are unique to me in this way, and this is a generalization, but in my experience, people that are focused on a thing or are clinical about it don't always have this skill set or the ability to translate it to people or make it inclusive, right?
Yeah.
And it isn't their fault either, right? There is an error of sophistication, or people think it's a class thing, or are intimidated by not fitting in. What makes both of you, and if you want to talk about him because that's more comfortable, that's certainly fine, but boy, you make this approachable and make people feel welcome on a global in a global way. What makes you both uniquely good at the inclusion part about this?
That's a great question, Matt. And I think I could go in many directions with this, but I think to just whittle it down to the most simple philosophy is that birds have brought so much joy and wonder and curiosity to my life and to Ken's that we want everyone to at least have the opportunity to experience that and to feel that joy and that excitement and the wonder of not just what birds look like, because they're beautiful and they're intensely alive. when you see a migratory bird this spring that's coming back, that's some of them that have made extraordinary journeys, weighing less than this pen, a bird called the black-poll warbler, in fall will move south, then east to the eastern seaboard and leap off and fly over the Atlantic Ocean for 80 hours nonstop. A bird that weighs less than a pen. Once you start to know birds and enter that world, it's endlessly fascinating. And the other reason is that bird populations are in serious decline. Habitat loss is happening around the world. We want people to fall in love with birds because people care the most about the things that they love. And if they love birds, they are now invested in supporting habitat conservation.
We're talking with Kim Kaufman with the Black Swamp Bird Observatory. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about the origin story of the biggest week in birding, because to some extent the birds decided this, but I also think,
right.
Kim, you decided this too.
We're encouraging it as well.
And so we'll hear that story when we come back. On the other side of the break here on the 419.
To me, community means connecting to others.
I'm Donnie Miller, and welcome to The Point.
I love CBS Kids!
We're a community committed to education. Discover new ideas, dive into exciting subjects, and engage with the world around you.
I would send them personally a t-shirt. Crime doesn't pay in the old West End, pass it on. That's how we cleaned up the neighborhood.
Vision loss for people is not the end.
It's a story, it's the next chapter.
WGTE Public Media invites you to Get Out and Play Day.
Monday through Friday, it's the 419 powered by WGTE. With Matt Killam, Gretchen DeBacker, I'm Kevin Mullen. What can people expect on the show?
It's going to be an hour, a reminder of why this is a great place to live, work, and play.
WGTE, where you come to watch, listen, and learn.
Welcome back into the 419. We're talking with Matt's mystery guest, Kim Kaufman from the Black Swamp Bird Observatory. The biggest week in birding is right around the corner. Birds are probably already starting their journey to Northwest Ohio. Let's back up. Like, first of all, what is and why is this the biggest week in birding?
Well, you're right, Kevin. Spring migration has already started. The vanguards of bird migration are here. The red-winged blackbirds, the sound of their calls are out in the marsh now. It's happening, and we're very excited. And you ask about the biggest week in American birding, and on paper, the biggest week is a 10-day birding festival in early May, and it's timed to coincide with the peak of songbird migration through the area. It offers something for birders of every skill level. Whether you're an expert or you have never gone out birding before, we make that entry point as easy and warm and welcoming as you will ever experience anywhere in the world. And there are workshops, van trips, field trips led by expert guides that will take you all around Northwest Ohio to all these great birding areas that we have. There are so many places to go out and enjoy birding in Northwest Ohio. It's just such a magical place.
And where are they, just for the most basic level, where are they coming from and going to?
The
Columbus,
people or
Ohio.
the birds?
Birds or the people?
The birds, the birds.
I know, I knew what you meant. So in spring, these migratory birds, and I'll focus on songbirds for the purpose of this and talking about biggest week, because the songbirds are the stars of the show. Many of these birds are spending the winter in Central and South America and making these long journeys north towards their breeding grounds. There are some birds that will winter in the southern part of the U.S., but the bulk of them are in Central and South America.
Based on their political beliefs?
Yes, exactly.
How long is the journey?
It varies.
Sure.
In spring, there are 3 general routes that migratory birds are taking. The first part that skirts the Gulf and comes up through the coast of Texas. The second, we call them the trans-Gulf migrants. And again, these are tiny birds weighing less than an ounce that will move up to the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula and leap off across the Gulf for 18 hours nonstop. And we know that ruby-throated hummingbirds, some of them make this flight. So when we see a tiny ruby-throated hummingbird weighing 3.5 grams, it barely registers, that can do that can cross the Gulf in a nonstop flight. I mean, all hail to
Can I
ruby-throated
also
hummingbirds.
ask what may also be an unintelligent question, but why are they doing it?
There are no unintelligent questions at all.
Well, we'll prove that wrong.
It's a question that still, I think, is not completely understood. One, it's food and nesting areas. So many of these birds, like the shorebirds, for example, are going to go up into the tundra of Canada and Alaska where they'll breed out on the open tundra. But food, a lot of these are insect eaters. And so they're moving back and forth for the abundance of food and the openness of habitat that's available in Central and South America. So those areas of vast vegetation provide the habitat and the food source that they need to survive the winter. And they are making extraordinary journeys. There's a bird called a bar-tailed godwit. It's a big shorebird. It's the longest nonstop flight of any animal in the world. They fly nonstop for more than 8,000 miles from Alaska to New Zealand in one flight.
You're kidding me.
They build up, they double their body weight feeding on insects and things, and then during the flight, they shrink their internal organs, like the digestive organs, because they don't eat, obviously, and regrow those organs when they reach the wintering grounds.
That's insane.
That's incredible.
It's just, that's what I mean about birds. The more you're into it, the more fascinating it becomes, and the more drawn into it you are.
But when that happens, generally, as an outsider, that also comes with it some annoyance at the folks that are, I almost feel like, when you show up late to the bar and everybody else is already drunk, you're just annoyed with everybody, right? And so when you come into this, and I know nothing about birds, and I'm bringing my kids who know nothing about birds, and we don't know the etiquette, we don't know the rules, we don't know what we're looking for or listening for, and then we show up with the foremost bird experts in the world, I gotta believe that, what makes that a welcoming environment that we're not annoying?
Well, first of all, the birding community itself is a community of the
Can I interrupt
nicest.
just a second?
Yeah.
You're bringing your children to a bar?
Yeah, late. Yeah, we go late. Yeah.
After hours.
Yeah, about 1:30 a.m. I'm sorry, Kim.
I was skipping over that.
Yeah, because you're
Just
kind.
don't write in.
My kids are already drunk, so where am I going to take
Kim,
them?
please, God, please start talking, please, Kim. Bail
They're
us out.
drunk on nature.
Yeah. God, well done.
So good.
Can you
Totally
be on the
saved
show?
you.
Yeah, yes, you do. Can you be on the show every day?
Well, I promise you that if you bring your family out, kids of any age, that you will be welcomed into this community in a way that that you'll never forget. That's part of the appeal, I think, is how warm and welcoming the birding community is. And it's human nature when you think about it. Birds are like these little gems. They're so colorful, and they sing incredible songs. And when you see something like that, the first instinct is to share it with someone and show them, like, look what I found. Look at this treasure that I've discovered. And also, right from the start, from the very start, as we were planning, the Bird Observatory put together a conservation business plan. We built it over 2 years. This is I'm going to go off on a tangent, so just cut me off. Okay. We moved into our modest little building at the entrance to McGee Marsh Wildlife Area, which is now, we've built this into one of the most iconic birding destinations on the continent. And at that point, in 2006, no one was traveling here to go birding. I shouldn't say no one. Very few people were traveling here. Local people came out, and we saw a need and an opportunity and a need to build a marketing campaign that was built around sharing this incredible birding opportunity with people, and also building support for habitat conservation with elected officials and decision makers. And there was a lot of work to do because the tourism season didn't kick off until a month later. So we needed to build an entire suite of services for birders that didn't exist. There weren't even birding area maps, nothing for visiting birders. And the business community, we needed to reach hotels and small businesses to say, you need to open a month earlier. We're going to bring a huge audience. And so we built all these things into it. And then Ken, my husband Ken, was writing for every birding magazine in the country. So when we had things in place, Ken started to write about birding during spring migration. And it was as if the collective birding community turned towards Northwest Ohio and said, what? Birding in Northwest Ohio? It was the best kept secret on a global scale. And I want to tell you, Ken and I have traveled and birded all over the world. And the birding here, there's no place else I would rather be in spring migration than right here. And that speaks to the importance of the habitat. We must be good stewards of this habitat and protect, conserve, and expand habitat for birds any opportunity that we get. because we are the vital connecting point for these birds from the rainforest where they spend the winter to the tundra and other places, the boreal forest where they're nesting. Without us, without the wooded habitat on the lakeshore in Ohio, we could impact the global population of sunbirds if we don't continue to be proper stewards.
What is something that just your average resident of our region can do to support that conservation? I know that there was an ordinance passed, at least in the city of Toledo, about the time frame and the buildings over a certain height turning lights off because that confuses them in their flight pattern. But what is something else that just, Kevin's family, what can Kevin's kids do to support? Besides getting help.
It's almost as if we scripted this, because the perfect segue is coffee. You don't have to be a bird expert. You don't have to go lobby Congress to impact bird conservation or habitat conservation. It can be as simple as the cup of coffee that you choose in the morning. Because the way coffee was historically grown was under the shade of native trees. It's a shrub. Coffee is a shrub. And now big companies have learned that they can bulldoze those native trees, the forest, and plant coffee in rows in the sun. They douse it with chemicals. So when you're selecting what coffee to buy, I want you to search bird-friendly or shade-grown coffee. If you pick the right coffee, you can impact bird conservation. There are so many ways. On the Bird Observatory's website, under the Conservation tab, there's a drop-down thing with an entire list of simple things people can do in their daily life to support bird conservation.
And what happens if it doesn't work? We're speaking with Kim Kaufman from the Black Swamp Bird Observatory. What happens if it goes away? If their habitat continues to decline or the population continues to decline, what happens to the rest of the ecosystem?
Well, birds, we talk a lot about the business of birds, the economic impact, and how much joy they bring to our lives, but we need birds. Birds provide important ecosystem services, like the first thing is keeping the insect population in balance. They pollinate plants, they disperse seeds, they disperse seeds that become forests. So the ecosystem services are vitally important to not just the health of bird populations, but to our health, to the entire environment. We are all in this together.
Some of the statistics here are incredible, and I'm always learning every time we interact, which I'm embarrassed because we are somewhat in the same business, although I'm certainly a piker comparatively. How many little travelers are there annually estimated?
It's hard to quantify the total number of birds that migrate through this region, but the really cool thing is that they migrate in massive enough numbers that they show up on weather radar.
That's right.
And many years ago, we reached out to the local television stations, to the meteorologists. I'll particularly talk about Ross Ellett. And Ross has become a really good friend, and we said to Ross, the birds show up on weather radar, and there's a way to track this, and he was on board immediately.
That's so cool.
And a lot of the other stations now are also, they'll not just air the weather forecast during the biggest week in American birding, there will be a biggest week in American birding forecast, a migration forecast.
Oh, I love it.
Is it high, low, medium? And you can look at their weather patterns that the birds take advantage of to save energy. We know when the wind is right, and there's a southwest wind overnight, we should talk about the nocturnal migration of songbirds. We know there'll be a big pulse of birds, and that's based on more than 30 years of spring and fall banding research, where our staff and volunteers are right out in the marsh. We set up these big nets, they're called mist nets, and they're about 12 feet high, 42 feet long, and the birds can't see them in the vegetation, so they gently are swept into these pockets, and our staff will extract, they take all these measurements, they put a little band on their leg, and then they're released. So for 30 years we've been doing that, and we understand that there's a timing, a rhythm, a predictable rhythm to migration, where in the first wave of migrants, we know that these birds will be in that wave, these species, in the second wave, and then the third wave. And so it's so, the science of it is so fascinating too. But billions of birds not just pass over Northwest Ohio, but are dropping down into the habitat on the lakeshore. And so that's why there are so many ways that we can work together to make the passage safer for birds.
I don't know that this question has a definitive answer, but it is probably just a given that they know where they're going. But they're not following a map, they don't get a triptych, if you remember what those were, which dates me, but do we have any idea how these little buggers know where they're heading or where their approach? I mean,
How long is your show?
Yeah, sure. Some people feel like it's never ends.
This is part one.
Yeah, that's right.
This is so fascinating. If we could fly, if humans could fly, we could migrate the way the waterfowl, the ducks and swans do, because the adults teach the young the route, and they migrate during the day using visual landmarks.
Okay.
But when you start to talk about songbirds, it's almost like science fiction, because these birds, first of all, they migrate at night. And we know from scientific studies that they migrate using celestial navigation.
You're kidding me.
They know the star patterns. And
That's
something like a little, it's a family of birds called warblers, and we'll talk more about that. But I mentioned black-polled warbler earlier. This bird that makes this journey, this 80-hour journey. Songbirds hatch out instinctively, knowing where and when to migrate. The adults don't show the young the way. They don't migrate together and communicate like, hey, come this way. So this little black-polled warbler, some of them will hatch out all the way up in the Yukon Territory. And maybe they'll stay around the nest when they leave the nest with the adults for a month or two. And then some night, when the sky is clear and the winds are right, this little bird that weighs less than a ballpoint pen will take off on this extraordinary journey and just know that they'll come down through the Lake Erie marshes in Northwest Ohio. We banned a huge number of black-polled warblers. The marshes are so vital to the global population. Then move to the eastern seaboard and then make this journey. So every black-polled warbler that we see this spring has made that journey and back at least once.
That's amazing.
We're talking with Kim Kaufman with the Black Swan Bird Observatory. I have a crazy idea.
Okay.
I want to do,
Kim, run.
in lieu of Gretchen's wacky quiz.
Oh my, look at the time.
Let's do a bird quiz.
Oh boy.
We're talking about
I'm wearing a bird
songbirds. So let's do,
Well done, Gretchen.
I'm going to play some bird
my shirt.
sounds. And we're going to let you three battle it out to see if they're going to get it right. You might as well, Kim, you might as well give Matt and Gretchen a shot at this first.
I'm in.
So they can get it wrong, and then you'll give us the right answer. All right, here we go. Here's bird number one. Oh, hang on. I let my volumes up. I turned it down for TV. Here we go.
So that is obviously a duck.
That is, I'm pretty sure that is a mourning dove.
What in the world is happening over there, you cheaters?
Cheaters.
All right.
Kim wrote it down.
Nailed it, Matt. All right.
Thank you. Yep.
Here we go.
That's a common
That's a
one.
redbird.
Are you, good for you, Gretchen.
I mean, that's not the actual name.
Northern cardinal.
For those of you that are
I'll
listening,
take redbird.
Cardinals are my favorite.
Kim wrote down my
Technically
answer. Gretchen
accurate.
actually got that.
I did. I got
Good for
it.
you.
All right, here we go.
Independent. I referenced this one earlier.
That's a macaw. It's a well-known parrot that flies around.
It's a macaw. It's a macaw. You're wrong on that one.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Man, Gretchen's
What
going
is
to
it,
get
Kim?
A red-winged blackbird.
Red-winged
That is
blackbird.
right. All right, here we go. Let's do two more.
Okay.
This is a good one.
That's a wolf.
That's a wolf.
Matt?
Oh, boy. I have no idea.
Oak Openings is a great place.
Oh, no.
to see
How
this
embarrassing.
bird.
Tell me, whisper in my ear.
A barred owl.
That's
barred
got
owl.
to be, okay.
Yeah, that's
I got
right.
it.
I knew
I
this
should
was-
have known that was an owl.
I
'cause
knew
of
this
the-
was going to be humiliating.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. And one of my favorite birds of all time.
Okay.
Big.
Mainly because
The mud hen.
I am wildly immature.
Okay.
Here we go. And you already know which one
I bet
it
I know what
is.
you're going to say.
Yeah.
God.
Oh, wow. That actually, I might be stumped.
Play it again.
Did you
one
make
more
that
time.
up?
I don't know that I can do that.
You made that sound all your own.
That's right. I did that on my own. All right, hang on. This is there we go.
I know what this is.
It's a crow.
Tufted titmouse.
It is the tufted titmouse.
Titmouse.
Yes,
Got
it
it.
is.
Aced it.
Yep.
Kim, you are
I knew it
amazing.
needed to either be the tufted titmouse or the American woodcock, which is an incredible bird that people travel here from all over the world to see.
We are wrapping up. We could do this all day, and I mean that sincerely. Quickly, Kim, is there one aha moment or one bird that you came across that is a favorite moment?
You know, obviously the American goldfinch was what we call my spark bird, but my favorite thing now is seeing others find that bird, that moment for the first time, and seeing that joy and being part of it.
Tell us wherever. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
People want to find more information on the biggest week in birding, the Black Swan Bird Observatory. Where do they find it?
The Black Swan Bird Observatory website is the best place to go. It's bsbo.org. And that's a good jumping off point to find information about Biggest Week and traveling here and all kinds of things.
Kimmy, the best. Thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're amazing.
Thank you so
much. Thank you so much. When we come back, we'll talk to Dave Kosmyna here from WGTE about one of the cool new programs coming to your ears. Talk about songbirds.
That's right.
We'll be right back on the 419. Support for the 419 comes from Witro Wealth Management, where we understand that your financial path is personal. Advisory services are offered through Capital Investment Advisory Services, LLC. Securities offered through Capital Investment Group, Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. More information at WitroAdvisors.com.
Destination Toledo. Whether you're a local or a visitor, Destination Toledo invites you to explore the region and be a tourist in Toledo. Find events, dining, and things to do at visittoledo.org.
WorkSpring. HR issues and employee well-being go hand in hand. WorkSpring supports employers through compliance, training, and wellness because healthy workplaces don't happen by accidents. Learn more at workspring.org.
Toledo Refining Company, a subsidiary of PDF Energy. Toledo Refining Company is a supplier of fuels that keep our region moving. Located in Oregon, Ohio, the refinery processes crude oil into gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and other petroleum products.
And TARDA, celebrating its 55th year of connecting Northwest Ohioans to their community. More information at tarda.com. Welcome back into the 419. We're joined now by Dave Kosmyna from the Toledo Jazz Youth Orchestra. And no, Matt, we are not going to do an orchestra quiz.
I won't be participating in this segment then.
Play random instruments and make you guess what it is.
So good. Yeah.
We'll just play is this woodwind or string?
Yep.
Make it real easy for you.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think you could do that.
Dave, thanks so much for joining us.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
What is the Toledo Youth Jazz Youth Orchestra?
Perfect. I know it's a mouthful. So the Toledo Jazz Youth Orchestra is a new ensemble that's been created through Toledo Live Arts, and Toledo Live Arts is now the recently rebranded name for the organization we've known as TAPA. You know, because there's been a really significant effort in terms of arts in Toledo to try and increase viability and be intentional about, I think, promoting arts in Northwest Ohio. So the symphony has come under that auspice. The ballet is under there. The Toledo Symphony School of Music is now officially under that lens. All right, and in fact, the organization used to be over at the old professional building, you know, on Monroe Street, Monroe Street and Woodruff maybe or something like this, or Jefferson. There we go, Monroe and Jefferson. And they recently acquired the space at the very end of the Stranahan, all right, so over on Heather Downs, and so that organization has now also enveloped the Toledo Jazz Orchestra under its umbrella, and I think in additional discussions, since the youth orchestras that used to work, I think, somewhat with Toledo Public Schools have now fallen under the symphony. And now Toledo Live Arts, they said, you know, we've got the Toledo Jazz Orchestra as part of our entity, and it would be important to then continue this education initiative, all right, but now to do this under the Toledo Live Arts lens and in conjunction with TJO. So that's essentially what happened. And so it's a new thing. There have been permutations of this that existed years ago. I mean, I remember when I was in high school, you know, I mean, people were doing, there was an offshoot of this group that was run. And it sort of kind of went by the wayside, and I think Zach Vassar felt that it was, hey, we should probably make sure that we're promoting education of all the musical endeavors that we as an organization is trying to do.
The conductor Elaine Trudell is in both, and he is a well-known jazz musician, but is also the conductor of the symphony. So I'm sure that he had something to do also with. With both.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Elaine's great. Okay, and
does he make you say that?
And no, he does not make me say that.
Yeah. You know how those Canadians are. They rule with an iron fist.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
All right, but No, it's funny because I only played under him. I think maybe once. I did some random concert like something that was at the Peristyle for.
What do you play?
I play trumpet. That's my primary instrument.
Gotcha. What's the secondary instrument?
Oh gosh, a ton of different things, but that's a long discussion.
Easy with the ego, Dave.
Usually piano.
Yeah.
All right.
Matt, is a trumpet a wood, wind, brass, or string?
Dave, this is what I have to deal with on a daily basis.
Just answer the question.
You know,
it's all of the things, all of the above.
It makes sound.
The way I
there
play
you
it.
Go.
Right. Yeah. I don't limit
string.
myself to. I'm not going to classify that important instrument into one category.
You're not into segregation.
See what I mean? They're just short thinkers, right?
Yeah.
Dave, other than misspelling your name terribly, I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Okay, sure.
You're now running an animal house out in the south end of Toledo. Who is the most unruly person underneath that tent? Is it the ballet? Are you constantly warring with them to get their acts together?
You know, actually, well, the ballet is usually our students rehearsing about the time we get there. But you know,
it's insufferable.
But they're on the other side of the building.
Okay. All right.
You know, so you know we just hear the gentle rumble of feet.
Yeah, but do
you
talk about that. You mentioned that this is something that it was sort of hedged at or nipped at prior, but this is a triumphant connection or an amalgam of all the arts in our area.
Mm-hmm.
You've been around a little while. This is working and it's exciting. Do you mind putting some context into that?
Well, I think what's important is that we have this organization that I think they realize that we've had all these independent groups in Toledo for a long time. And I think they realize that we could have more impact, and that in some aspects there's a lot of overdub that happens. You know, I mean, there's so much advocacy that's required to get arts organizations to function. And they thought, gee, you know, maybe we could use some of the administrative machinery that might exist for some of these other organizations to actually promote and benefit these things. And part of that includes their education wing, you know, and so there's already this mechanism in place, you know, for training future musicians in Toledo and Northwest Ohio. And so I think they said, well, geez, now we need to not only do this with the classical musicians, with not only the academy where they can, or the School of Music where they can take their private lessons, and with the youth orchestras where they have ensembles to perform in, all right, but then also into the realm of jazz. And it's a natural, it's a natural partnership because now the TJO falls under that umbrella.
What is the age group for the kids and the youth in the Jazz Youth Orchestra, and how do they get into it? Is it an audition process?
Yeah, that's a great question. And in fact, one of the things that happened when I interviewed for the job, because I wasn't necessarily expecting to do something else. I'm pretty busy as a performer and educator and whatnot. And one of my pals called me randomly, you know, one evening and said, "Hey, there's this new thing opening up, and I think you'd be really good to do it." And I thought, "Oh man!" But the more I thought about it, I felt that the opportunity to help grow this in my community, because I mean, I'm from Toledo. You know, I live in the Old West End. I'm a big Toledo fan.
I live in the Old West End.
All right, excellent. There we go. We're neighbors.
Yeah,
Who
how
knew?
about that?
All right. And so the opportunity to do this here in Toledo really spoke to me. But what happened is they said, well, you know, you're going to have to recruit. And they thought, well, how many students you think you can get? You know, you're going to get maybe, you know, 7 or 10. I thought, heck, we're going to have a whole band. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You know, so basically part of my job was to essentially strong arm all of my friends that teach in the school systems, you know, call up band directors, say, hey, I need you to send me your students because we're going to have a full band. And so we do. I mean, we've got 4 trumpets, we've got 4 trombones, we've got 5 saxes, we've got a flute player that happened out of the blue. You know, again, someone called and said, hey, my daughter is working, you know, already does some jazz in one of these combos at school. Would you consider adding a flute? And I said, heck yes. So, you know,
cool.
and full rhythm section. So we've got almost a 20-piece big band.
Are these, what's age group?
So it's primarily high school. I think I have one student that might be in 7th or 8th grade.
Are there plans for the orchestra to perform places?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, we rehearse every Wednesday night over at the Center for Live Arts, which is the name for that new facility that they've got. And they've really done a really cool job.
It's amazing, yes.
Yeah, I mean, they've got great practice rooms and rehearsal spaces and office spaces and gathering spaces. But we're going to have a concert on, this is going to be April, I have to look at my notes, April 26th, which is a Sunday at 4 p.m. in the Bob Bell studio, well, Robert Bell, you know, studio.
Great man.
So, yeah.
Why is this important?
Why is it important? Well, it's hugely important because number one, the arts are important.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and education's important. All right, and the arts are one of these things that, I mean, not only do we understand who we are as humans. You know, I can't quite paraphrase the Churchill quote. You know, but you know. If we're not fighting,
this show isn't built on accuracy, so fire away.
But if we're not fighting for the arts, what are we fighting for?
Yes, sir.
Right.
You know,
that's a great way to segue up. Thank you very much.
We're talking with Dave Kosmyna from the Toledo Jazz Youth Orchestra. If people want information, where can they find it?
They can find it if they go to Toledo Live Arts, and we should be able to have all the information about concerts and whatnot.
Awesome. Dave, thank you so much. Appreciate your time on the program. When we come back, we'll wrap up this Friday edition of the 419.
You laughed with us. You learned with us.
Hi, neighbor.
We made sure your childhood was special. Memories that could only be provided by PBS. For generations, we've given you programs that made a difference. Programs that entertain, inform, and inspired. And today is no different. This is WGTE Public Media in Toledo. It's where you belong.
Introducing The Local Thread, a community news series uniting voices and storytellers from across the region. In partnership with La Prensa, the Toledo Free Press, the Sojourner's Truth, Toledo Public Schools, and Rethinking Jails and Justice. The Local Thread brings you stories and conversations that connect our community. Hear it weeknights at 7 on FM 91 with early access on podcast platforms each morning. The Local Thread, only on WGTE.
Welcome back into the 419 as we wrap up this Friday edition. Matt's surprise guest, Kim Kaufman, flew in and flew out, and
Big
she
winner.
was fantastic.
Nailed it, Kevin. Good bird joke.
I asked her as she was leaving, if we were birds,
yes,
what birds would we be?
And she gave you the middle finger.
She gave me the bird. That's exactly right. No. She said, Matt, you would be, you say, a red-winged blackbird.
Yes.
Because of the personality.
Because they're B.O.
Gretchen, you would be, you'd be a swan. You'd be a swan.
Yeah.
I was hoping you'd be the mute
charm
swan.
And beauty. Yeah. No.
Nope. And then she said that I was the majestic bald eagle.
Yeah.
Which I think is a shot at my hair. I think that's what that is.
I think it's because you seem like a Republican.
Okay.
Well, guys, back to the show.
If you missed
I can
any
feel
part of the show-
WGT's walls trembling as more funds get rerouted.
Man, if you missed any part of the show, there's 3 great opportunities to enjoy it. Of course, 7 a.m. on YouTube, 3 p.m. on FM 91 in Toledo, Bryan, Defiance, and Lima, and 6 p.m. on WGTE Connects channel 30.4. Of course, always online at WGTE.org/the419, or you can download the new WGTE app.
That's awesome.
Matt, nice job on bringing Kim in.
Yeah, not enough time for either one of them, which is becoming thematic for our guests.
We're going to need to have him back.
And another highlight of what a great place this is to live, work, and play. She's lights out. Her husband is lights out. But just as importantly, the region does what it does and always has, and it's time to celebrate appropriately.
And I feel the need to go back and talk to my wife about the way she talks about me in public, because, man,
Right.
Yes.
Kim is still fawning.
Yeah,
over
it's
Kim.
genuine.
But he's actually amazing.
Yeah.
So that's a.
Oh, that's your distinction.
Wow.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
I've got the
different.
producer in my ear laughing at that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Well, I
I
think
appreciate
he
it.
got there on his
Hey,
own.
thanks for joining us. Thanks to Kim Kaufman. Thanks to Dave Kosmyna. And thanks to you for joining us. It's the 419, powered by WGTE and presented by Witro Wealth Management.
The 419, powered by WGTE, is made possible in part by supporters like you. Thank you.